Hello and good afternoon, my indigenous brothers and sisters. How are you guys doing today? I am doing great, as always. And today, this video is about the American Indians and the Native Americans. And I want you guys to understand the difference between the two. Because when the Europeans came here, they are the ones that categorized us as American Indian and Native American, and I'll explain to you why. Now, I chose this book to read because, of course, my lineage is Cherokee, okay? And I'm going to explain to you about lineage also in this book, show you proof of how you find out your lineage, what tribe you come from, okay? And we don't need no DNA to tell us who we are, especially not the government, not America's DNA, okay? Not the United States DNA. We don't need that to tell us who we are, okay? So this book is called The Cherokees. It's by Theda Purdue, okay? It's called The Cherokees, the Indians of North America, okay? The Indians of North America, all right? So, let's get started. All right. Oh, yes. Also, the author, I'm going to tell you about, so maybe you want to read her other books, okay? Original author, Theda Purdue, professor of history and American studies at the University of North Carolina, and author of several books on the Cherokees, okay? And it's foreword by Ada E. Deer, director of the American Indian Studies program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and the former assistant secretary for Indian Affairs. I've been to Madison, Wisconsin before, so. All right. So now, I'm just going to point out a few things because this is a pretty long book, and I would suggest you pick this book up and please read it. It has a lot of vital information, okay? But I'm just going to focus on the first chapter because it's a lot of vital information in that first chapter, okay? So, let's get started. All right. Now, this is a foreword from Ada E. Deer, okay? And it starts with the American Indians because that's what they categorize the Cherokees as, American Indians, okay? And I'm going to go down to the second paragraph, the Revised Indians of the North America series, which focuses on some of the continent's larger tribes, okay? These are the ones that they recognize. So these are the ones that the book is talking about. Provides the reader with an accurate perspective that will better equip him or her to live and work in today's world. Each tribe has a unique history and a culture, and a knowledge of individual tribes is essential to understanding the Indian experience. Really? Okay. So let's start. Now, it says, prior to the arrival of Columbus in 1492, scholars estimate the native population north of Rio Grande ranged from 7 to 25 million people, okay? Which means if they estimated that, it was definitely more than that, all right? People who spoke more than 300 different languages, which is definitely more than 300, okay? It has been estimated that 90% of the native population was wiped out by disease, war, relocation, and starvation. That was a lie. We all know that. Moving on. Today, there are more than 567 tribes. Today, which means what they just said, the disease and war and relocation and starvation, and we have 567 tribes that are, today in our society right now, then that's the sentence before that is a lie, okay? It says which have a total population of more than 2 million. Okay? Lie. It's more than that. When Columbus arrived in the Bahamas, the Arawak Indians greeted him with gifts, friendship, and hospitality. He noted their ignorance of guns and swords and wrote they could easily be overtaken with 50 men and made to do whatever he wished. This unresolved clash in perspective continues to this day. Okay? Now, I have to speak on that because when Columbus arrived here, he only had an encounter with one tribe. At that time, when he first arrived here, one tribe, the Arawak Indians, okay? Just one tribe. All right? So, now, also, let's go down to this paragraph, and it says, since 1778, when the first treaty was signed with the Lenape tribal, sovereignty has been recognized and a government-to-government relationship was established, okay? This concept of tribal power and authority has continuously been, misunderstood by the general public and undermined by the states, okay? In a series of court decisions in 1830s, Chief Justice John Marshall decided tribes as domestic dependent nations. Now, this white man decided that we were domestic independent nation. We needed them. Basically, that's what he was saying. We needed them because basically we were not living up to their standards. Okay? But that's not true. All right? That's not true at all. Okay? So... So as far as that goes, let's go to chapter 1. The principal people. Okay? Now, it says the Cherokees call themselves a I'll say we are. The real people or the principal people. They lived in a land of high mountains and green valleys, today called the Southern Appalachians. Okay? The Cherokees believed that their homeland was in the center of the world, and they described the earth as an island suspended by 4 cords from the sky. You know what that means? That means the turtle island. Okay? Now, if you don't believe me, let's go down to the next sentence, okay? It says the water beetle, which was the turtle. That's why they call it Turtle Island, okay? Look at that. That's why they call it Turtle Island. They just described it for you right there. The 4 cords from the sky, okay? Which was made of solid rock, okay? So, now, let's go to the next page. And looky here. All right. This is the map. This 1884 map shows the land holdings still held by the Eastern Cherokees, what remained of their original tribal lands at that time. So again, 1884, okay? They're basically saying that this entire area, even after they named it, after they declared that they were states, were still Cherokee territory. You see that? There's Kentucky, okay? Cherokee territory. There's West Virginia, Cherokee territory. There's Virginia, Cherokee territory. Look at there. There's North Carolina, Cherokee territory. Look at that. South Carolina, Cherokee territory. Georgia, Cherokee territory. Alabama, Cherokee territory. Okay. Where's Tennessee? There's Tennessee, Cherokee territory. Okay. All that is Cherokee territory. So you try to tell me that people that live in Georgia, Alabama, today Tennessee, Kentucky, none of those Cherokee are left? They wiped them all out. You see how big that area is? That's 6 states, okay? Just keep that in mind. 6 states. That's pretty big territory, if you ask me. So now let's move on to another point. All right. So let's go to this one, okay? It says, for the Cherokees, the mountains that the buzzard made had been their home for at least 1,000 years, okay? 1,000 years when Europeans first arrived in their villages in 1540. So we've been around for 1,000 years before the European ever stepped foot, okay, before the European ever stepped foot on Turtle Island, okay? It says Western North Carolina was the heart of the Cherokee homeland, but in the early years of European contact, they also lived in what are today upcountry South Carolina, northern Georgia, northeastern Alabama, and eastern Tennessee. Now, as they say that, remember I had told you in a previous video of mine that my great-grandmother was a full-blood Cherokee. And when I looked up her in the census, her and my great-grandfather and everything, and then I looked up her parents, which is my great-great-grandmother, my great-grandmother was born in Lafayette, Georgia, okay? And she was a full-blood Cherokee, okay? Full-blood Cherokee, which means my great-great-grandmother was a full-blood Cherokee from Georgia, okay? And when my great-grandmother got married to my great-grandfather, when she got married, she actually moved from Georgia to Knoxville, Tennessee, okay? So evidently she traveled to where she had family, because that was Cherokee territory, okay? Now I'm gonna get to our lineage later in this book, all right? So now, let's see, spoke on that. Let's see, what is the next order of business as far as information? Okay. My pinpoints were the lineage. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is how you recognize your lineage back in those days, okay? It said the prominent role women played in society stemmed in part from the Cherokees' matrilineal kinship system, okay? In such a kinship system, people trace their descent through women instead of men, or as we do in our culture, through both men and women. But that ain't our culture, okay? That's not our culture. Cherokees belong to their mother's clan, okay? A group tracing its descent from a common ancestor. In Cherokee society, a person-only clan relatives were those on the mother's side, okay? Remember I was just talking about my great-great-grandmother born in Georgia, Okay? She was a full-blood Cherokee. My great-grandmother, she's a full-blood Cherokee because her mother was a full-blood. So that meant that my grandmother was a full-blood Cherokee, okay? Because of her mother. And my father and my 10 aunts and uncles are also full-blood Cherokee, okay? But me, because my father is the full-blood Cherokee, I wouldn't be considered back in those days full-blood Cherokee because my mother, I would be full-blood of what my mother's side was and what my grandmother on her side was. But that's how you trace back your lineage, from your mother and your grandmother. Okay? If you can trace your lineage back three generations, that's all you need. You don't need these DNA tests, these online DNA tests, these fake ass DNA tests. You don't need those. Okay? All you got to do is go back at least 3 generations, find out what tribe you were from, or what tribe was in the area that your mother, your great-grandmother, or your great-great-grandmother was born. Okay? So, that explains how your lineage is found out, you know what I'm saying, on your Native American or American Indian. All right? Yeah. So now, okay, and it says, now let's get to the women. The women in the tribes, because they held a very, very important position. They held a lot of important positions. You know, it says women not only held power within the family, but they also wielded influence within the village. Okay? In the village council, the traditional form of Cherokee government, prominent female members of the community freely voiced their opinions. Okay? Women were heard, as did well respected men. Okay? It was a much level respect for the women and the men and their positions and their roles. Okay? Council meetings were run democratically. Villagers debated on issues until they reached consensus. This model was repeated throughout the Cherokee homeland, in which individual settlements govern themselves. Okay? So, as you can see, now, let's go to, and I got one more point to make. All right. So now somebody said, in one of the comments or something like that, you know, Indians own slaves also, and and I made a video on the whitewashing of Native Americans, and there's plenty of ways that the whitewash